There are people who walk into a room and something in the air changes, not because they demand it, not because they are trying to be noticed, but because something in them is genuinely, quietly good, and goodness, real goodness, has a presence of its own. Savannah Guthrie has always been that kind of person. The kind you trust before she has even finished her first sentence. The kind whose smile, at 6 in the morning on a Tuesday, makes the day feel like it might actually be okay. She built something most people only dream about. Not just the career, though the career was extraordinary, earned through years of discipline and sacrifice, and the specific kind of stubbornness that looks from the outside like grace. She built a life, a whole, layered, genuinely meaningful life, with love at its center and purpose holding everything else together. She was, by any honest measure, exactly where she had spent decades working to be. And then something arrived that none of it could protect her from. It did not knock. It did not announce itself. It came the way the hardest things always come, quietly, in the middle of an ordinary morning, while everything else was still going about its business. And it changed the shape of things in ways she could not immediately measure, could not quickly fix, could not simply anchor her way through. The people who watch her every morning feel something for her that is harder to name than admiration. It is closer to trust. The particular trust you extend to someone who has been honest with you, consistently, over a long enough period of time that you have stopped questioning whether it is real. And when something honest and hard entered her life, they felt it too, because that is what happens when you let people genuinely in. What she has been carrying and what it has cost her, and who she has become on the other side of it, that is the story. And it starts the way all stories that matter start, long before the moment that changed everything. To understand what Savannah Guthrie has been through, you have to start at the beginning. Not the television beginning, not the anchor desk and the broadcast career and the name people recognize. The real beginning. Because the foundation of a person is always laid before anyone is watching. She was born in Tucson, Arizona. She grew up partly in that dry, open landscape and partly in Melbourne, Australia, where her family relocated during her childhood. Two countries, two ways of seeing the world. And then before she had time to fully settle into either of them, her father died. She was young. Young enough that the loss arrived before she had the language or the emotional architecture to fully process it, and so it simply became part of her, part of the way she moved through the world. Part of the quiet understanding, carried somewhere beneath all the ambition and warmth and forward motion, that the people you love are not permanent. That time is not something you can bank on. She came back to the United States. She finished school. And then she did something that reveals everything you need to know about the particular quality of her mind. She went to law school. Not as a detour, not as a fallback, but because she wanted, before she started telling the world what was happening in it, to understand how the world was actually structured. She earned her degree from Georgetown University, passed the bar, and practiced briefly before the pull of storytelling proved stronger than any courtroom argument. She moved into journalism. She covered politics. She covered legal affairs with the precision of someone who had actually studied the law and the instinct of someone who understood viscerally why it mattered to people. She was not simply reporting events, she was translating them, making them human, connecting the machinery of power and policy to the daily lives of the people who were affected by it. By 2012, she had joined the Today Show as co-anchor, and in that role, something settled that felt like it had always been waiting to settle. Her legal rigor gave her interviews a sharpness that other broadcasters rarely matched. Her warmth gave her an accessibility that made viewers feel included rather than simply informed. And her willingness to be genuinely, vulnerably herself on camera, to cry when something moved her, to laugh when something was genuinely funny. To admit uncertainty when she felt it, built a level of trust that cannot be manufactured, no matter how skilled the production team or how large the budget. Away from the cameras, she was building a life with equal intention. She married Michael Feldman in 2014. They had a daughter, Vale, and then a son, Charlie. The family made their home in New York City. And Savannah held all of it together, the broadcast and the school runs and the marriage and the faith she had always kept quietly central, with a competence that made it look from the outside easier than it was. It was never easy, but for a while it was full and good and exactly what she had worked for. And then the center of it began, slowly and without warning, to shift. There is a kind of contentment that does not announce itself. It does not arrive with fanfare or revelation. It simply becomes the texture of your mornings, the ease in your shoulders, the steadiness in your voice, the sense that the life you are living is fundamentally The one you were meant to be living. Savannah Guthrie had that. For a real and sustained period of her life, she had that completely. Her presence on the Today Show had become something that went beyond professional excellence. The program was, in the way that enduring institutions become, a kind of daily ritual for the households that turned it on. People woke up and reached for it the way they reached for coffee, automatically, gratefully, without having to think about why. And Savannah was the reason so many of them stayed. Not because she was the most dramatic personality or the most polished broadcaster, but because she was the most real, the most consistently, unmistakably herself. She talked about her children with the specific, warm humor of a mother who is genuinely besotted and genuinely exhausted in equal measure. She talked about her faith without performing it, not as a public identity, but as something private and sustaining that occasionally became visible when the moment was honest enough to call for it. She talked about marriage and work and the permanent low-grade chaos of a full life in the way that someone talks when they are not trying to curate an image, but simply telling the truth. Her daughter Vale was growing into her own personality in that particular, astonishing way that young children do, becoming specific, becoming funny. Becoming entirely herself in ways that no parent can predict or take credit for. Charlie was following close behind. The family had weekdays in New York and something quieter beyond it, the kind of grounded domestic life that makes no headlines and sustains everything. At the center of all of it was Savannah, managing the broadcast, managing the mornings. Managing the thousand invisible logistics that a life of that size requires, with a steadiness that she had spent years developing, and that from the outside looked like something she had simply always had. It was not, it was built, carefully, deliberately over time. And it was about to be tested in a way she had never prepared for because you cannot prepare for something like this. You can only meet it when it arrives. It started quietly. The way so many serious things start, as something minor, something easy to set aside, something that gets added to the list of things to deal with when the schedule allows. A change in her vision. Not the kind that creeps in slowly with age, familiar and gradual and vaguely expected. Something sharper than that. Something that arrived with an urgency that the ordinary explanations did not account for. According to what Savannah has shared publicly, she noticed the problem and sought medical attention. And what followed was the particular kind of frightening that medical uncertainty creates. Not the fear of a confirmed outcome, but the suspended fear of not yet knowing. Of waiting in the space between the question and the answer, where everything is still possible, including the worst of it. She was diagnosed with a detached retina, a serious condition. The kind that, without prompt and correct treatment, can take vision permanently and without negotiation. She had surgery. She told her audience about it with the same matter-of-fact honesty she brought to everything. No performance, no drama, just the truth stated plainly. She had needed medical treatment and she had gotten it. She was back. Many viewers processed it accordingly. A scare, a serious one, but resolved. A chapter that had opened and closed cleanly, the way health scares sometimes do when caught in time and treated well. But it had not closed, not cleanly, not completely. According to subsequent reports, the surgery was followed by complications that did not fully resolve. The vision in the affected eye did not return to what it had been. The outcome she had hoped for, the quiet, complete return to how things were before, was not what she received. She kept coming to work. She kept anchoring. She kept showing up as the person her audience needed her to be. And somewhere beneath all of that, beneath the warmth and the professionalism and the daily performance of a life in order, there was a woman privately reckoning with something new. Something she had not chosen and could not simply work her way out of. The possibility of lasting, significant vision loss. The question of what her life looked like if the things that had always been available to her were no longer available in the same way. That question does not have a quick answer. And the living of it day after day, while the cameras run and the broadcast continues and the world expects you to be steady, that takes something that most of us are never required to find. There is a kind of bravery that does not make the news. It does not happen in a single moment that can be photographed or quoted. It happens in the repetition, in the daily choice to get up and go back to the same place and do the same work and face the same people. While carrying something inside you that has not been resolved and may not be resolved for a long time. It is the most ordinary kind of courage, and it is, in many ways, the most demanding. Savannah Guthrie practiced that kind of courage across the months that followed. She continued to anchor the Today Show through major national events, continued to conduct the kind of rigorous, precise interviews that had always defined her at her best. Continued, in other words, to be fully present in her professional life while navigating a personal and medical reality that, according to various reports, remained genuinely uncertain. She spoke about it honestly when she spoke about it at all. She did not reach for drama. She did not ask for more than the situation warranted. But she also refused to minimize it, to wave it away as a temporary inconvenience that was already behind her when it was not. She said what was true. The threat had been real. The outcome had not been what she hoped. There were still concerns, still questions, still a future she was navigating without a map, and through all of it her family held. Michael, steady in the specific, unshowy way that the best partners are steady, present in the accumulated weight of small gestures rather than any single defining one. Her children, old enough now to sense that something was different with their mother, but sheltered from the full weight of what that difference meant. The particular emotional labor of protecting the people you love from fears you are still carrying yourself. That is a weight that has no external marker, no visible sign. No way for the people watching to see exactly what it costs. She carried it without putting it down, she kept showing up, and that in its quiet way was everything. What a genuine health crisis does, beyond the physical reality of it, beyond the appointments and the procedures and the medical language, is strip away the things that had been filling the space around what actually matters. The professional ambitions that felt urgent, the social obligations that felt necessary, the scheduling concerns that had seemed, until something serious arrived to rearrange the hierarchy like the main event. All of that falls back. And what is left standing in the cleared space is the essential version of a person's life, the things they would not give up, the things they cannot imagine without. For Savannah Guthrie, according to what she has shared across many interviews and conversations over the years, faith has always occupied that essential space, not as a public posture, not as something performed for an audience that might respond warmly to it, but as something private and genuinely load-bearing, the kind of belief that a person returns to not because it answers every question, but because it holds them steady while the questions remain open. Her experience with her vision by all evidence deepened that, not in the way of a conversion story, not dramatically, not with a clear before and after, but in the quieter, more durable way that sustained difficulty tends to reveal what is actually foundational in a person's life. The things that are real stay. The things that were decoration fall away. And you find out, sometimes for the first time, which category the things you had relied on most actually belong to. She spoke in one interview about the recalibration, the shift in what felt important, what felt urgent, what felt worth the weight of attention. She did not speak from the comfortable distance of someone who had resolved everything and was looking back with the ease of hindsight. She spoke from inside the experience, still in the middle of working out what it meant, still choosing each morning to engage with a life that had become more complicated than she had planned for. That honesty, that refusal to perform a resolution she had not yet reached, is one of the things that made her audience feel, during this period, not just informed about what she was going through, but genuinely close to it. There was something different about her, not diminished, not broken, but layered in a way that had not been there before. The warmth she had always had felt now, like something that had been tested and had held, which is a different and more meaningful thing than warmth that has never been tested at all. The years that followed did not offer the clean resolution that the story might seem to ask for. That is the true and important thing to say, because the temptation with a story like this is always to round it toward hope, to move it gently in the direction of the happy ending, to find the place where the difficulty stops and the recovery begins and present that boundary as the conclusion. But life does not work that way, and Savannah Guthrie's story does not work that way. According to reports, the effects of her vision challenges did not fully recede. The surgery and everything that came after left her with lasting changes, things to adapt to, things to work around, things to accommodate within a professional life that made significant demands on her physical presence and perceptual precision. She has spoken about this adaptation carefully, without self-pity, in the tone of someone who has accepted that adapting is now simply part of the work. She stayed at the Today Show. She anchored. She did the work at the level she had always done it, which is a fact worth holding onto, not as evidence that everything was fine, but as evidence of what a person can do when the work is genuinely theirs, and the commitment to it is genuinely deep. Her family continued to be the stable center of everything. Her children kept growing. Her marriage, by all visible evidence, remained what it had been through the hardest period, real and grounded, and held together by something more durable than circumstance. There were ordinary mornings and ordinary evenings, and the kind of unremarkable daily life that does not make any list of achievements but constitutes, in the truest sense, what a life actually is. She turned 56, and that number in the context of everything she had been through carries a particular weight, not the weight of age itself, not the vague cultural anxiety about time passing, but the weight of arrival, of being a specific person in a specific place, having come through something real and emerged from it still recognizable, still whole, still in the most fundamental sense herself. What she carries forward from it, what was taken that has not returned, and what was given that could not have come any other way, those are the questions that remain open. They may always remain open, and perhaps that is exactly as it should be. There is a version of Savannah Guthrie's story that tidies itself into something simple, a challenge faced, a recovery made. A life returned to its previous course. That version is not dishonest, parts of it are true, but it misses the thing that actually matters. It misses the texture of what she lived through and what she continues to live with. The way a serious illness does not end when the medical phase ends. The way it becomes part of the ongoing structure of a life, not as a wound that refuses to close, but as a new dimension of a person's understanding of themselves and what they can bear. She is 56 years old and she is still there every morning, still asking the questions that need asking, still bringing to the broadcast the rigor and the warmth and the specific, hard-won humanity that she did not start her career with and could not have found without going through what she has gone through. She is doing all of that with eyes that reminded her, at the most fundamental level, of their fragility. With a body that delivered a message she did not choose to receive and could not choose to ignore. With a life that is genuinely beautiful and genuinely marked, in the way that all lives that have actually been lived are marked. That is what real resilience looks like. Not the kind that appears on motivational posters. Not the kind that presents difficulty as a stepping stone to a predetermined triumph. The kind that says, this happened, it changed things, some of those changes are permanent, and I am still here, still in it. Still showing up for the people and the work and the life that are mine to show up for. What she offers her audience, and this is not something she planned or designed or calculated, is the evidence that it is possible to be genuinely, substantially affected by something hard and to remain, in spite of that whole. Present, warm, turned toward the world with curiosity rather than away from it with fear. She has not separated the public person from the private one. She has not built the kind of careful, managed distance that allows a public figure to be seen without being known. She has let people in consistently and at genuine cost across the years and through the difficulty, and what she has given them in exchange for their time and their trust and their early mornings is the truth of what a real life looks like. From the inside, in real time, without the benefit of hindsight smoothing the rough places away, the women and men who turn on the Today Show each morning are carrying things. Their own health fears quietly managed, their own marriages which are beautiful and complicated, their own children who are growing too fast and not fast enough all at once. Their own faith or absence of it or search for it, their own sense of whether what they are building will hold when something comes for it. What Savannah Guthrie demonstrates simply by being there is that it is possible to have things come for what you built and to still be standing. Not unchanged, not unaffected, but standing. At 56, her story is nowhere near finished. The chapters ahead will hold things she has not yet imagined, joys and difficulties in proportions no one can forecast. And she will meet them the way she has met everything else, fully present, genuinely honest. With the specific and quietly extraordinary courage of someone who has already learned, at the level of lived experience, that showing up is always enough. That it is, in fact, everything. If this story touched something in you, if it brought to mind your own quiet battles, or someone you love who keeps going despite everything they are carrying, take a moment and leave a thought in the comments. These conversations matter more than you might think. They remind us that the hard and private things we live through are rarely as lonely as they feel in the dark. If you want to keep watching stories told this way, with honesty and care and real human depth, subscribe and stay. There will always be more here worth sitting with.